Welcome to AI It's Getting Weird. Today we got a really interesting topic. I don't know about you, but when I'm out in the world, I don't see a lot of teens working. I don't see a lot of teens at all. I never really thought about it till this came across my feed. And this is called The Rise and Fall of Teen Jobs by Michael Girdley. I checked this out and I thought I'd bring it all to you. So let's get into this. Stay tuned because I do have ideas and thoughts about AI, and so does AI because I asked AI about this. Let's check it out.
Back in the year I was born in 1975, if you were a teenager in the summer, you probably had a job. You were mowing lawns, you were working at a pool like this one behind me here in San Antonio, Texas. You were working at Woolworths or even at the local amusement park. Back then, 72% of teenagers would have a summer job. Today, the number is barely half that, with less than 35%. In just a few decades, we've lost over half of America's working teenagers. Teenagers aren't getting jobs anymore during the summers, and nobody's talking about why. Those jobs didn't disappear overnight. It happened gradually. And it's also not why you think. Not that teenagers are lazy and stuck on phones all the time. It's much more complex than that. It's something else that happened. It's the way we think about America. It's the way we think about jobs. It's the aging of America, and it's a lot of machines involved. This story is the rise and fall of teenage jobs. Let's go back to when summer jobs were nearly at their peak. It was in 1978. That summer, 72% of teenagers had a summer job. You remember back then, the baby boom was at its peak. 10% of the labor force at that moment was age 16 to 19. Pretty insane. Entry-level jobs were everywhere. You could be working at McDonald's, at a pool, inside of any part of the booming economy. If you were relatively skilled and could talk and interact with another person, you had a job pretty much instantaneously. They needed you. And culturally,
Just watching this, I remembered one of my jobs, and I've had so many jobs, but this was probably one of my favorite jobs ever. I guess I was a senior in high school. It was my summer job, somewhere around then. I worked for the county park system on the maintenance crew and cutting grass and weed whacking and repairing stuff and building trails and maintaining the trails. We had a really great trail system in New Jersey. A friend of mine was working there, and they said, "John, why don't you do it too?" So I did. Every morning you came in with your sandwich and you brown bagged it and then went out with the crew and started working and just doing manual labor and digging and weed whacking and cutting grass, a bunch of different facilities. It's one of my favorite jobs I've ever had. It just was. You knew what you were doing. It wasn't complicated. You had some responsibilities and you went home tired at the end of the day from doing a good, hard day's work. I always remember it fondly and look back on it fondly as I'm stuck in front of my computer and different jobs I've had over the years. There you could really get your hands into stuff. Many a times while I was doing corporate stuff, I'd stare out the window and think fondly of my job as part of the maintenance crew in New Jersey.
that's just what baby boomers did when they were teenagers. They got their first job. That's what the whole generation was about, working hard and playing hard. But at that moment would begin a 45-year decline in teenage employment. Over the next couple decades, from the 1980s to the 2000s, the era when I was a teenager, believe it or not, there began a steady erosion of teenage unemployment. We went from 58% in 1980 to 52% by 2000. The reason? Well, it was education. This was the beginning of the college industrial complex in America. Basically, the American dream had a part, that part was you had to go to college in order to get ahead. And the statistics agreed with it at the time. College earners were vastly out-earning. People would just...
But how does that interfere with having a summer job? It is so important to have a summer job or jobs before you have a major job when you graduate college. It's so important to learn about having a boss and working with other people and figuring all that, getting a paycheck and what that's like. And then looking at your FICO and how much the government takes out. Oh my God. And then I got to deal with this. And then they take all my money. Yeah, you have to have a summer job. It is so important. There's things that happen as you're growing up that are so important, like camp. I thought going to summer camp for at least a couple weeks is an experience every kid should have if you can afford it. And even if you can't, there's other opportunities. But camp and a summer job, the friendships you make at your summer job, it's a lot of fun and it's a lot of good memories. Let's see what Michael's got to say about how college interfered with all this.
Just a high school degree. So parents, they told their kids, you need to get ready to get in the best college you can because that'll determine your future. So kids, instead of doing things like summer jobs, were going to enrichment programs and things that would help them get into the best school they could. Mom and dad knew that a McDonald's cashier check wasn't going to get you into Harvard. You needed to have something special on your resume. So that's what parents started telling their kids. But you'd expect in that moment that kids would go to these enrichment programs, summer camps, or whatever, and then come back and get a job. But they didn't. Then the next thing to happen helped solve some of the mystery. In the 2001 recession, post the dot-com boom, teenage employment went down. That's pretty normal. But something happened. After the 2001 recession, teens didn't come back to summer jobs. And then during the next recession in 2008, they didn't come back again. This was quite the mystery. So a Federal Reserve economist named Christopher Smith, he went and dug in. Why is this phenomenon going on? And the answer he found was pretty surprising. The first thing that Smith and other economists discovered was that if you go into a lot of workplaces these days and look who's behind the counter taking a lot of those jobs that were once, filled by teenagers and after school hours, it's suddenly people that don't look like teenagers. It's in fact the opposite of teenagers.
And now that this guy's pointed it out, you're going to go, to Target, to Walmart, to all these other different places, and you're going to notice there are no teens, and they're just, hey, there's a lot of older people here working here. A lot of people over 50, a lot of people over 60, which, hey, that's not so bad. That's to a point.
In 1987, only 11% of workers were over 65. Today, that number is 19%. That's 11 million more senior citizens who are out there taking up jobs, many of which are ones that teenagers used to take. Here's something that employers figured out. That 60-year-old retiree, they take their job really seriously. They don't check their phone, they don't talk back, and they show up on time all the time. They don't have any of those annoying school activities or parenting or dates or proms to keep them from coming into the job. So if you're an employer, who are you going to choose? Yeah, the silver sneaker older person into the role. So the first group to actually start to push teens out of the workforce.
I tell you, they're not all like this, but my last corporate job, I had to hire people, and hiring people in that 22 to 28 zone. Well, I interviewed everybody, technical work. They were very different than the people over 35 or around that zone that I interviewed. I had one person, they kept going like this during the interview. And I was like, what is going on? They were looking at their phone and texting during the interview for the job. And this was a high paying job. It wasn't, I couldn't, I just said, are you on your phone? Oh yeah, I just had something, this and wow. I couldn't believe it. I was floored, but that was my experience. Let me know if you had an experience like that in the comments. But yeah, that was a weird experience. And they weren't all like that, but I had a very difficult time finding a candidate in that lower age range. It was a very different interview experience.
Were some of the people that should have most wanted them to have jobs, their grandparents. But that wasn't the whole story. The early 2000s also began and continued a large influx of migrants into the United States. And what we've seen here is the immigrant labor participation as a total percent of the labor force has gone from 15% in the early 2000s to over 17%, and it's growing. But here's something that surprised everybody. When Smith dug in, he discovered that immigrant labor participation hit teenagers worse than it hit adults, whereas a 10% increase in immigrant labor might hit adults by 1% in terms of total labor participation. For teenagers, it hit them 3 or 3.5%. All those jobs that teenagers used to do, like food prep, cashiers, valet parking, suddenly it was immigrants coming in and taking those jobs and taking them year-round, not just during the summer. And here's something else. The laws in the United States basically encourage employers not to hire teenagers. A big cost for employers is insurance, and one of those is called workers' compensation. Turns out if you hire a teenager, it costs you more. Because why? Teenagers are much more likely to get injured on the job. They're basically kids, so that happens. There's also other constraints. They can only work certain.
That's really interesting. I would have thought the older crew would have more workman's comp, but according to Michael and his statistics, it's the youngsters who are getting all hurt at work and
certain hours. My kids, who are teenagers, by the way, have gone out trying to get jobs here in San Antonio. And the moment they walk in, the employers look at them and say, well, you can only work after school? Like, that's not gonna work for me. I need somebody here at 6 a.m. So they don't get the jobs. But the 2010s saw another increase in stuff because of increased labor costs across the board. That meant that more and more companies are putting things like self-checkout lines. Teenagers used to be a stalwart in the checkout lines of grocery stores. Today, those grocery stores and cashiers are getting replaced by self-checkout lines. Retail used to be the biggest employer of teen labor. Now, it's getting phased out. Some statistics show that 88% of cashier jobs are going to get automated out and disappeared. Heck, there's even folks who are using Philippine or overseas labor to basically zoom in to run cashiers at different kind of restaurants in New York. That's how crazy stuff is getting. In the end, it hurts the teenager's chance to get a job. So here we're at with grandparents taking the teenagers' jobs, immigrants competing for those roles, machines getting rid of them, and employers choosing not to hire them. And you say, well, yeah, it looks like the opportunity has disappeared for teenagers. But on the other side, something else was happening, which was teenagers were starting not to look for jobs. In 1994, 20% of teenagers that were not in the workforce said they actively wanted a job. By 2014, that number was 8.8%. While kids were being squeezed out by all the changes in the world, they were also not opting in to jobs at their teenage years. Why is that? Why would kids not be interested in taking roles and jobs that pay them money? Let's start with how kids are getting raised now. And here's a statistic that may surprise you, despite what is everything in the media and how much scary stuff appears to be going on in social media and the news. The United States right now, from a teenage perspective, is safer than it has been in any of the last 50
Wow.
years. So while the news is scaring the crap out of us and the world by data is actually safer for kids than it's been in almost any...
It's safer because they don't go outside. They're not out in the world. They're like, what? Yeah, there's less homicide. There's less this. Yeah, no one's going outside. They're inside on their phone or whatever they're doing on their sofa or in their bedrooms. Who knows? I don't know. But yeah, that's what's going on.
of American history. You talk to parents and you'd think they're raising their kids in a war zone. Back when I was a kid, it was basically like be seen but not heard, and they kicked us out the door and said, don't come on until the streetlights turn on.
Yeah, what are you doing inside? Get out of here. That's what every parent in the 80s and 90s said. Get out. Go. And I'd get home from school, put on my shorts, and I'd be gone. You're gone until the sun went down. That's how it was. You were playing with your friends. You're going on bike trips. I was fishing at the pond, going to a different pond, over at friend's house, building a fort, whatever it was. We were constantly doing stuff. And I didn't want to, why would I want to be home? Why would you want to be hanging out at home?
Today, it's exactly the opposite for kids. They have phones, they're tracked 100% of the time. My kids think it's perfectly normal that we have Find My on all their phones and know where they're at every single moment of every single day. And my parenting friends, they do all the same things. They're terrified to let their kids out the door, ride their bikes to school, or go out alone.
Oh.
It's rough out there. Today, in a post-COVID environment, we've all spent hundreds and sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars nesting our homes to make them incredible for people to hang out in. Heck, my home's super comfortable. Like, I like being there. You know why? We spent a bunch of money post-COVID to make it awesome. Same thing has gone on over and over again. You see lots of teenagers who just don't want to leave the house. The average teenager now spends over 7 hours a day on screens outside of school. That's not just like a job.
That's the average. 7 hours a day outside of school. Oh my God. No wonder they're not out working the cashier. They're too busy on their phones. What's going on? That is something else.
That's another full-time job in entertaining themselves on video games over the internet. And regulations started to get even worse. Think about a lot of where the job creation is today. DoorDash, Uber, a lot of the delivery services. You can't get those jobs until you turn 18. And by then, maybe you're not even interested. And let's go back to the idea around getting into a great college. It's a huge competition. It's even getting more competitive. Despite the United States population doubling and tripling over the past few decades, the population of kids that gets into Harvard, man, it's still the same exact number. They've barely grown at all. And it's happened for many elite schools that kids and parents want to push their kids to. In 1985, 10% of teenagers were in summer programs designed to enrich them and prepare them better for college. By 2014, that number is almost 50%, nearly a 5x increase. And it's not just summer school.
That's about to plummet. That is about to go. Why would you send your kids to college? Really? Other than the social aspect, why would you send your kids to college? Does that make any sense at all? You can type in a prompt and get any answer to any question you want. What's the sense to even learn? You look up what you need. You type it into the AI, you get what you need, it's done. How is it college makes any sense after that? What about jobs? Are there going to be jobs for whatever you're studying in school when you get out? Are there seriously going to be those jobs still? You got to do a little research and figure it out. But to see college taking a huge dive, except for sports teams and things like that. In the social aspect of college, the paradigm is dead. I know people are slowly waking up to that. Why would you spend that incredible amount of money to go into debt for a job that may not be there and probably won't when you get out? Does that make sense to anybody? No, that is a dead paradigm. So I see this shifting. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments, but that's how I see it.
It's also going to things like preparatory trips, overseas enrichment, language classes, study abroad.
That's
Man,
good.
basically everything. But here's the crazy thing. If you go talk to admissions counselors for colleges, you know what they'll tell you? They would much rather see students who've had a summer job and creating something meaningful than a bunch of kind of BS programs where the kid got shipped off and the parents wrote a big check. Crazy. So suddenly you've got an enormous kind of tidal wave, not only encouraging and making it more difficult for teens to find jobs, we're actively encouraging teens not to go out and look for them. Can you blame them? Well, I can't. And here's the crazy thing. We're losing critical mass of the teenage employment at this point. Suddenly, when employers can't hire teenagers or they can't even find teenagers who've had summer job experience before, that means they're offering fewer teenagers and having to do other stuff, like get machines or hire immigrants to do the job. In the end, suddenly you have fewer employers, fewer teenagers looking for jobs. It's a doom loop. And it's just going to keep decreasing. This summer of 2026 is projected to be the worst summer job market for teens. Well, basically forever. And here's the saddest part of the whole thing. This basically has created what is a ticking time bomb in the labor market for the United States. What great opportunity do you have for kids to learn what it's like to deal with an angry customer or an unhappy customer or something going wrong at work and dealing with a little adversity than a great first job where the stakes are lower? These days, now, employers like me, we commonly have 20-somethings show up and mom comes along for the first interview. It's crazy. And it's not all even across all.
You have got to be kidding me. You have got to be kidding me. Oh, man. Mom comes along for the first interview? Wow. You're going to hire someone whose mom comes for the first interview? I can't believe that. You got to be kidding me. You have got to be kidding me. Holy God. I never heard of anything like that in my life. Look, everybody, if you're in your 30s and 40s and 50s and you have some teenage kids, you kick their butt out the door, metaphorically, and have them get a part-time job. Have them get a summer job. Have them get something where they learn about money and they learn about having a boss and they learn about showing up even when you don't want to. Yes, showing up when you don't want to. Lock mom away in the bedroom. I'm joking, of course. But the over mothering, you got to watch that. People got to grow up. They got to go to an interview on their own and they have to make some mistakes or they have to learn how to prepare. Oh, if I prepared, I would have done better in my job interview. If my mommy wasn't there with me, maybe someone would take me seriously. What parent is thinking that a job is going to take their child seriously if you show up with them? That is the nuttiest thing I ever heard. Oh, that blows me away. That really blows me away.
All demographics as well. Here's one stat that'll blow your mind. If you make over $150,000 a year as a household, your teen is more than twice as likely to work during the summer as a family that's barely above the poverty level. The kids who need the experience the most of a summer job, and the money too, are the ones least likely to get it. And all this means that a rite of passage that used to happen consistently during teenhood is basically going away. And look, over the next coming decades, we're all going to pay the price for it. In the end, we're running one big experiment with the next generation, betting that screens and summer enrichment programs are going to benefit them more than working hard, earning your own money, and doing stuff outside the house where you have responsibility like an adult would. As entrepreneurs and business owners, I think the impact on us will be pretty great. We're going to have a continued pressure to find the kind of labor that we want in the market, and it's going to keep getting tighter and tighter.
Yeah, buddy, you can watch the rest of that, but I think we get the point. All right, so I did some research on Perplexity, and here's what AI has to say about this. While AI-driven automation is expected to cut roughly 27% of teen jobs by 2030, several other industries and AI-driven side hustles are creating new opportunities that can help teens offset those losses. Healthcare and education support, So many hospitals, clinics, school districts, and tutoring centers are hiring teens for patient support roles, medical office helpers, lab assistant helpers, and after school tutors, especially in hybrid or tech assisted setups. Manufacturing, trades, and local services. Ship repair facilities. Ship repair facilities. I haven't run into one of those, but this is what AI is telling me. Small factories, construction adjacent firms are increasingly offering paid internships and apprenticeships for high school students, often with training and career pathways. Local services and gig style work, landscaping, home maintenance help, pet sitting, and local errand services are booming in tight labor markets. And these are often flexible enough for teens to slot in around school. If you're a hustler, if you're an entrepreneur, there are opportunities. There's still jobs. You should definitely try. There's still cashier jobs and things like that. It's not an absolute. Let's see what else we got. AI enhanced content and social media. Using AI tools to help plan and edit YouTube shorts, TikTok, and Instagram reels for local businesses, video editing support, captioning, and thumbnails, creating AI assisted copywriting, writing product descriptions, social media posts, and newsletters for small shops or startups, AI tutoring and homework help, offering AI guided tutoring, building study plans, explaining concepts, generating practice quizzes in subjects like math and foreign languages, AI assisted data prep and microtasks, helping companies label images and reviewing data for training machine learning models, and doing small scale AI assisted modernization and feedback collecting for apps and websites. While maybe some of these kind of monotonous, less interesting jobs, there are opportunities, I think, for more creative stuff using AI. And I think start your own little business. People used to have delivering newspapers or washing cars, and no one's getting newspapers anymore. There's opportunities, really. It's endless once you start incorporating some AI into it. Yeah, I think AI can really help you with business. There's complexities to all that, but I think while some jobs go away, new industries pop up all the time. And get with some friends, get something going, get out of the house. 7 hours on the screen. If you're not making money doing that, get out of there. But there's a lot of support services for content creators, and there's creating your own content. If you're just posting to TikTok to impress your friends, it's time to grow up, teens. It's time to move forward and do something else. Do something with those skills. Do something with those interests. There are opportunities, but it's more of an entrepreneurial age. You can't just depend like, I'm going to go to the local food store and get a bagging job and hang out with some friends at the fast food place and fry up fries. There are immigrants taking those jobs because they can work full time. They don't have to worry about school or have after school, and they aren't just looking for a summer job. And there's also the elderly population or the over 50, 60 population that maybe had early retirement, want to get back into the workforce for whatever reason. They have to pay their rent. It's tougher times now. But there are opportunities. And I think if you don't give up and you are employing the technology of the day, you can put something together. You can do something interesting. Make connections with people. Get off the phone and connect with the people around you. The people you meet in high school and college, sometimes those are the people you start businesses with. The more people you have in your network, I want to stress the importance of network and the people you meet and shaking hands and getting out there and doing stuff and being on the local basketball team, playing sports and doing these friendships you make and the friendships you make from a summer job. You can bounce off ideas with these people. Why don't we start this business? Why don't we edit YouTube videos for people? Why don't we do this? Why don't we do that? Ask AI. Give me 20 ideas for a great summer job. I'm an entrepreneurial spirited person. What should I do? What are some things I could do? I have a car and I have a driver's license. What do you suggest? Use the tools that you have. Create networks. Do jobs that you don't necessarily like or have an interest in. You will learn about different industries, and the different industries that are connected to that one, you may find something that you like there. It is so important having a summer job. I can't stress that enough. So for the parents who have kids, encourage them. Not only encourage them, say get off your butt and get out there. Get out of the house. Get out of the house and get a job. You are going to be so thankful that you did. Thanks everybody for coming along. I hope you enjoyed this video. I thought Michael did a great job setting that up. check out his channel. Subscribe if you're enjoying the content here. We're a new channel and we really appreciate any subscribers. It tells YouTube that you like it, and it tells me that, hey, I like what you're doing, John. If you don't like what I'm doing, or you want to tell me you do, make a comment. Let's hear what you have to say about teen jobs. I would love if people wrote in about their favorite job they had as a teenager. I would love that. And I'd love to hear about those stories. It's a good memories for me, and maybe it was a good memory for you. So share it with everybody. All right, everybody. We'll see you in the next video.